Discovery Weekly.
Welcome to Discovery Weekly, a bonus show from the podcast Discovery Show that's all about discovery. It's everything else we found out throughout the week that is not podcast related. I'm Zach.
I'm Kirk.
And I'm Matt.
And I discovered the first photo of the Earth because I thought that it was the blue marble. That's what I thought the first photo of the Earth was, but it wasn't. It was actually 75 years ago, and it was taken from it wasn't stolen because it was after World War II, but we took a Nazi rocket and shot it into space. And that's how we get the first photo of the Earth. I linked it in the chat if anybody would like to see what the first one looks like. It's way worse than the blue marble. That's like the really impressive one. But between two fuel tanks of a Nazi V-2 rocket there was a 35 millimeter film camera that took a photo of the Earth, and it was the first photo of the Earth ever taken. And it was shot by us because after World War II, which we all knew, I guess at the time, America knew, and basically the entire world knew how advanced Germany was on their technology. But they were using these rockets essentially to win an arms race. They were building rockets that they could really take out huge parts of a country before like the atom bombs and things like were there. And so it failed as a weapon because here's a quote here. It had been a failure as a weapon because it was a very expensive way to drop a 1-ton bomb on an enemy city. But it's obviously a technological breakthrough that could herald a new age of either space vehicle or ballistic missiles. And because Germany lost World War II, it became a space vehicle. And we literally, apparently both us and the Soviet Union at the time, Russia, captured as many of these rockets as they could because they were so far advanced beyond what anybody else had. So we stole all the rockets from Germany we possibly could. We started studying them just to figure out what's happening here. But it really kind of, because, okay, if you think about it, this happens in like the 40s. It literally probably ushered in the space race because both us and Russia found all of this German technology that was far superior. And then we both were the two in the space race and the Cold War in the years following World War II. So literally, and I mean, I never knew about this at all, but I guess we both found out like, oh, rockets could be really cool. We could go to space and stuff. And then we just like, hey, you over there, we're going to fight you now. And so we just fought for the next 40 years because that's the world.
I wonder if, well, I guess it's kind of a stupid thing to say because World War II is the reason that rockets and stuff were invented. But if it wasn't because of the war, if Germany would have been the first country to go to space.
Yep. I would think so. But completely.
Then you take the war out of the equation and then they don't need rockets. So,
yeah, true.
Kind of defeats the purpose. Anyway, that's always fascinating because war is so bad, but there's always so many things that we now have that we use daily on a regular basis, like regular people.
Yeah, the internet, that radio waves, all that stuff is because of wars.
Because of war. So it's either war and exploration, like space stuff. Both of those things are like really do breed crazy amounts of ingenuity.
Yeah. And definitely check out this article because there's some really cool pictures in, not just the one of the Earth, but you can see the rocket. You can see, I mean, it was on literally like a film camera we could get. They stuck it on a rocket and took a picture. But there's another one that was in White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico, and it's actually of the launch. And it's also like awesome. It's also retro futuristic. That's amazing looking. But yeah, really cool article and something I had no clue of. And I feel like it was fairly significant that it was the first picture taken of the Earth.
Yeah. Did not know that existed.
Stolen Nazi rocket.
No wonder we don't know, though. It's just like, it looks more like the moon.
Yeah, you can't Instagram that picture, so nobody cares.
Yeah.
Speaking of nobody caring, there's a service in Japan for people who may or may not have people that care for them.
Dynamite segue.
That's pretty good. That was really good.
Maybe the best one you've ever done.
Thank you. I'm sure the next one will be atrocious. I just exhausted all of my
all of my fuel. All of your segue karma on this one, huh?
It's very true. I really did. So I lost the link. What I'm here to talk about is something that you may or may not know about, but it's a service in Japan where you can hire a family or one family member, like whoever you want. Like it's
a la carte situation where you can kind of just
exactly.
I just want I want a little nephew for a little bit, and then they can go away.
But I have to go through this article from medium.com because it gives a reason why they offer this service as well, which is fascinating. So I'm just going to read the article and we can diverge as we go. But what is a typical household? For Japan in the 1970s, it was a nuclear family comprising of a working father, a stay-at-home mother, and their 2 children. Almost half a century later, the single-person household is the norm, and it's projected to make up 39.3% of households by 2040, which is insane. Single-person households, that's like more than a third.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So this, and I'll go through it. Single family or single person households or any household types that deviate from the nuclear family structure, those 4 people, face prejudice from institutions in society. Younger unmarried people have fewer public housing subsidies. A child of a single parent is more likely to be the subject of bullying and harassment. And as the old Japanese saying goes, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. This is a brutal saying.
I've heard that before. I didn't know it was an old Japanese saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Conform or get hammered.
Right?
It's horrible.
This whole thing has given rise to this rent-a-family business, and it's very affordable. How much do you think it is to rent a family member?
Just one?
Just one for a day.
$100.
200.
Well, Kirk's closer. It's 190. 20,000 yen.
It's a bargain.
Yeah. But for that amount, you can request who they are. You can request how old they are, their accent, their appearance, their personality, and if you want them to dress a certain way.
And do they just like stand there, or are they like part of a charade with you?
From what I understand, it's more of like an acting exercise for them. You're like, you're my brother. And it's like, okay, brother, you're my brother. It's like, wait, high five.
It's an acting exercise for who?
Oh, for the
one being hired?
The families. Yeah, the hired families.
Families, yeah. But basically it's a way to fit in. If you guys have seen this on Netflix, there's that Conan Without Borders. He actually goes to Japan and does this.
Honestly, that was the best day of that rented family's life.
So funny.
If you get paid by Conan to hang out.
That episode.
Yeah. I mean, all it was basically like, he's like, you're my family. And they're like, I love you. And then he'd be like, it's like they didn't really speak the language very well, but it was so funny because they just follow you around and you're like, hey, and they're like, what's up?
The funniest part is I feel like Conan is one that could kind of go without speaking. He's kind of like vaudevillian, and he can really pull it off very well. So he's kind of funny and just his physical humor. So they probably had a great time regardless.
Oh, yeah. He'd be like, hey, Dad, what do you think of this? And he'd be like, that's what I thought. It's just great. It's very interesting because we talked about the crying people. There's this very Japanese idea of the communalism that is to be a greater unit rather than just the individual. And it's so interesting because that area of the world has been so wrought with like single person families that it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really started to shift. It's interesting. I think there's a cultural shift happening right now because there's a lot of they're having like issues with nobody's having babies right now for the most part. There's some, but the birth rate is dropping significantly.
Yeah,
but I think that's worldwide.
Oh yeah, And I guess there's a big problem of like social loneliness in Japan as well. I mean, that's what happens when you've seen pictures of where people live, and it's just like right in the city. It's just like tiny rooms. It's like your whole thing is online, and it's like you don't interact with people the same way. Interesting. It's very interesting.
It's so crazy how probably like there in these areas where there's probably more people per square foot than most other places. So you're surrounded by more people than almost anyone else, and you feel so lonely because it's almost like because there's too many people, you just get lost in that crowd.
And I will also say that this article says that if the actor or the renter becomes too attached, the company will terminate the relationship.
But I like that it's honestly, I feel like there's a story in that too. That something has happened there, and that means it's gone both ways. Where like sometimes the actor will be like, "This is great," and sometimes the person who hired will be like,
"My brother,
this is amazing." Like, we're stopping it either way. Do not start liking each other. This is a negotiation.
I know
it's a transaction and it's over.
Very interesting.
That's crazy. I wish they had that here, and I would pull some great pranks on people.
Yeah, who would what family member would you rent? Not to diss like your family, but like if you would like prefer a really awesome, like, I don't know, sister or something.
And no, I'm more thinking it would be funny to rent an entire family and then just go to like Golden Corral and cause the biggest shit show of all time. Like just get them on board for this and just have a full on like family cheese fondue fountain fight at Golden Corral.
That's not the first time that's happened.
No.
Yeah, you're
that's
dishing
a Wednesday
out cash.
At Golden Corral.
You're like, thanks for the food fight. Here's 190. Here's 190. Here's 190.
Because I guarantee that people would watch that. That's funny. That's funny to watch.
So I found this fascinating article on science.org. It is about, it's a new way of archaeologists finding hidden cities. And it's something that I had not really thought about, but it makes a lot of sense. It says nearly 500 Mesoamerican monuments revealed by laser mapping, many for the first time. And it's this article that talks about scientists that have recently uncovered almost 500 giant monuments. So like, I'm talking about like Mayan Indian type stuff, but they're all buried or completely covered with trees and stuff, so you can't see them with even like from above. But they used lidar, and it's just really fascinating. He says, dating as far back as 3,000 years ago, the structures still buried beneath vegetation include huge artificial plateaus that may have been used for ceremonial gatherings and other religious events. And you can see there's these perfect long rectangles, essentially. And the scientists in the article say the sheer number of this site they found is staggering. An archaeologist at the University of Texas, Austin, who's involved in the work, the study is going to be the inspiration for hopefully decades of research at these different settlements. So there's a little bit of criticism. They got a little bit of pushback because, they were conjecturing as to how old some of these were. And it's science, and science is always very the science field is wrought with people that would love to prove you wrong immediately. And so the pushback was, well, you got to carbon date that. You can't just say what it is. But the whole thing is, this is the big picture. Now we know where to like really search and pull Indiana Jones style digging excavations and stuff like that. But it's just really cool. And you can see the pictures of it. And it's fascinating.
Wow. So now we can have more sites where big Nazis can get kicked into propellers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I
need to rewatch those movies. They're so good.
So good.
I tried. So this was a while ago. But I tried to watch it with Mason. Now, this is when he was young enough that I didn't want him to watch some things anyway.
Like
but
the
it was
face
PG.
meltings.
It was PG, but this was before they, and I didn't realize this till we listened to another episode a long time ago. I think it was a Reply All that they talked about the rating system. And they were talking about how like they literally listed a bunch of movies that were rated PG that now would almost be rated R.
Yeah.
And Indiana Jones was one of them.
No, isn't there nudity in
just,
Spaceballs?
It's just super intense. I don't remember nudity in Spaceballs.
No, it's
There is an
airplane. Yeah, it's definitely an airplane.
Not to...
What were we talking about? We were talking about monuments.
I mean, there's some sort of they're like
he was
monuments.
talking about Indiana Jones. It's kind of related.
Oh, never mind. I was getting ready for a really good segue, and then I was like, "It's not my turn. It's not my turn." Oh man.
So I did discover this week that if you are at all interested in being a walrus detective, you are needed.
What?
You're needed. A walrus detective.
Now,
that's what I thought you said.
Is this a detective that is a walrus or a detective for walruses?
Honestly, dealer's choice. I think they leave it really open-ended for you to make your own choice. No, but the World Wildlife Foundation, which do you guys remember when wrestling was WWF? I don't know. Still, they're the ones who are talking about this, not wrestling, but the
WWF.
And British Antarctic Survey are hoping to track the number of Atlantic and Laptev walruses over 5 years to find out just how much climate change may be affecting the population. And what they're doing is called Walrus from Space Project, which will be used with volunteers. And so you go onto this website, you look at satellite imagery, and you literally count walruses. And by doing this, you are directly contributing to helping walruses in general. So if you like looking at pictures of walruses, walrys in the middle of ices, you can do that, and you can help out. You can help with the walrus. So if you're at all interested in trying to help out the walruses and the World Wildlife Foundation, you can do that, and it will be linked in the show notes.
Put me on that list.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious how they would make sure that people don't double count walruses.
I mean, I guess they're probably going to send you X photos and send them to somebody else, you know?
See, this is why I'm not doing
this. It's like where's Waldo, but where's Walrus?
Where's Walro?
Sorry.
That's good.
I'm sorry.
It's beautiful.
I thought it was great. I loved it. I'm
waiting for the segue for this one.
I'm just laughing my own joke right now.
Walruses as animals that do crazy things. You know who else do crazy things sometimes? Actors in movies.
Yeah, they do.
Whoa.
I kind of got there. That wasn't terrible.
Yeah. No, it actually was pretty good.
Yeah. So my other discovery this week is actual practical stunts that happen in movies and like what they are. Of course, you'll have had to have seen the movie to know what I'm talking about, but there's a great link that you can click on a great website called ranker.com where they rank things, and it's like Reddit, but then the listicles change with what everybody thinks, which is very interesting.
I love it.
I love this. I'm probably going to do a deep dive on what Ranker is eventually, but I'm just going to go through the list of this because some of these are insane. Number one, of course, is Jackie Chan when he slid down a skyscraper in Who Am I?
Oh, love that.
If you haven't seen this, he's literally
I remember that one.
falling down a very, very deep sloped skyscraper the whole way.
You could honestly throw quite a few Jackie Chan movies on here.
Yeah, I imagine there's probably a lot of Jackie Chan stunts in here. But number two, and I didn't know the thing is I never know which one of these are actually real, you know? Keanu Reeves jumped from a moving car to the speeding bus in Speed. And it was going. Dennis Hopper, I guess, insisted that the bus was going over 50 miles per hour when he did it.
Of course he did. Isn't there like a famous story of John Wayne punching Dennis Hopper?
I'm not familiar.
I think John Wayne hated Dennis Hopper because he was just like being Dennis Hopper all the time. He was a pretty intense dude from all of the accounts I've heard.
Really? Oh, that's the third. That's the third stunt. Just kidding. The third one on here. If you guys have ever seen, if you're familiar with Buster Keaton and you've seen Steamboat Bill Jr., this is like the.
Don't know what that is.
No, you would know this though. This is a very famous scene.
Yeah, very famous stunt. Like Buster Keaton, of course, notorious for doing just absolutely insane things. Always did his own stunts. This one was the one with the front of the house falls down and he goes through the window.
I have seen that one.
Yeah. So he did that. Like that actually fell around him and was actually the front of a house.
And since this was in what? That would be the 30s?
Jesus. Yeah, I can't even.
So if he would have messed up, it would just splattered him, and would have nothing would have. That was the end of the story if that happened.
Yeah. Which would have been also a great movie, but
the good old days. You know what I mean?
This one's interesting. Speaking of Indiana Jones, Indy went through the windshield and under the truck in the third one. I'm sorry, not in the third one. The Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's the one. I'm trying to place it in the film, but I can't place it. But the Indiana Jones.
Either. This definitely confirms I need to rewatch Indiana Jones.
Do too. I'm reading it and I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, the stuntman, this was the stuntman. It wasn't Harrison Ford, but he actually did the thing of being dragged by a car, going up to it, hanging onto the chassis of it.
I definitely remember that. I definitely remember being dragged behind the car, like pulling himself up.
Crazy. Mm-hmm. This one's insane. Tom Cruise, of course, does all of his own stunts. Person. He rode that airplane into the sky from Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. He rode, like, strapped in and took off with the plane. That's insane.
And you know that everybody has to be like, just stop, man. Just stop doing it.
They're like, we can attach a dummy up there. And he's like, no, I got it.
Look, have you seen CGI technology?
Yeah, right.
Like, you don't have to do it. You're 60 years old.
He's like, Lord Zeno will protect. This was pretty wild. I did not think that they did this, but you know, in The Dark Knight, when that big rig flipped over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It actually flipped over.
I thought that was CGI.
Yeah.
That is amazing that it wasn't.
And the stuntman, Jim Wilkie, was in the cab the whole time.
What?
Yeah. Insane.
This is an awesome list.
I know. And what's cool is it'll change depending on if there's one that's better, you know? This one, the stuntman Wayne Michaels in 007 GoldenEye, he jumped off the Contra Dam at the beginning. Didn't think that was real. Let's see. Zoe Bell rode the hood of a speeding car in Death Proof. She actually did that. Going however fast they were going. That was insane.
Yeah, but doesn't Tarantino have a reputation for he maybe shouldn't have done some of these things?
Probably. And this one is actually, everybody kind of knows about this one, but in Ben-Hur, the chariot race was real. And it was especially dangerous. And I believe someone actually did die during this scene. It flipped over and killed someone. But
I think that was the movie because we listened to a podcast once that was talking about the animal ethics in movies. And I think that like a ridiculous amount of animals died in that movie.
No, any movie where there's animals, a ridiculous amount of animals died in. Like, wasn't it Milo and Otis or was it?
Yes. Because apparently that one was like a Japanese movie first or something like
Milo
that.
and Otis is a
Mhm.
horror show. That
The part where the dog jumps off the cliff, they threw multiple. Was it dog or cat? I don't remember
Cat.
which thing. They threw multiple
17
cats off of the cliff for that shot. Literally, that's so messed up.
old
So
movies.
bad.
It's like,
Oh,
God, guys, please settle down.
Oh my God. And I'm not going to go too in depth, but Mad Max, all those car things,
All
real,
of the scenes in
all
Mad Max
insane.
were so good.
the Fury Road,
And
those people that were jangling on those poles were actually doing that.
I feel like you can tell when it's real like that, or like when they're using practical effects rather than. I do like special effects. It's fine. I get it. It's much easier. I mean, how do you do it? You can't do a really good sci-fi movie. Well, I guess you can because Star Wars, but you know what I mean? It's much easier. But like, I just watched Dune, the new one, and it had a lot of practical effects, and you could tell, you know, it was like, you know, miniatures, kind of like Star Wars, probably, you know, but it still looked so much better than a CGI thing would have.
And I'm just going to include this last one before we move on. This is basically all of The Raid Redemption.
Oh, I want to rewatch that too.
Let me just go under.
So good.
This guy damaged his knee twice. One man was stabbed in the chest with a prop knife so hard it broke his ribs. Another went over a balcony, smashed his head against the opposite wall, and slammed into the concrete slab of the ground floor. That movie's insane.
It really is. I need to rewatch that movie. That's like one of the most intense martial arts movies I've ever seen.
Crazy. But it's a good list. Check it out. I'm sure we'll have a link somewhere.
Awesome.
Show notes.
Well, for my last spooky discovery of the year, well, of this spooky season.
Next week starts the Christmas discoveries.
Oh, God.
Wait, Matt, are you someone that gets triggered by early Christmas things?
No, not really.
He is.
Kinda.
I'm going to start doing it.
Kirk loves Christmas.
I trolled Josh like, what was it, like last week?
Yeah.
Because I sent him a picture of from last year, but I made it act like I had my Christmas tree up already. Because he gets so mad.
He gets really mad about it.
But I don't actually have my Christmas tree up yet. Not till Halloween. So we are going to talk about Robert the Doll. And I know that we've done a podcast, I believe, way back in the day that talked about him in particular. But I want to talk about a little bit more about like where he's at now and stuff like that. This is the story. Where is Robert now?
Behind the doll.
Didn't we talk about Annabelle?
We did, which is technically very loosely, very, very loosely based off this doll.
I thought it was a different one. I thought it was at the what are their names? The Warrens.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It's a different doll.
That is a different doll.
That's a Raggedy Ann.
That is a different doll. This was there was another stupid horror movie based off this one. I forget which one it was.
No, I
The
clicked
Boy.
that.
I think it was called The Boy or something.
I think it was called The Robert.
There is a movie called Robert, but there is a movie called The Boy, which is also about a doll.
How many doll movies are there?
There's
a lot of doll
Chucky,
movies.
None of them are good. Has there been one good doll movie? I'm sorry, Kirk. Go ahead.
So it's funny because I have not visited him, but I need to go visit him next time I'm in Key West because he is in Key West at a museum. And if you don't know who Robert the Doll is, here's a little bit about him as well. It says, here's something that most people would agree is true about Robert the Doll. He's terrifying. Ostensibly a little boy in a sailor suit, his careworn face is only vaguely human. His nub of a nose looks like a pair of pinholes. He's covered in brown nicks like scars. His eyes are beady and black. He wears a malevolent smirk. Clasped in his lap, he's holding his own toy, a dog with garish, popping eyes and a too big tongue lolling crazily out of his mouth. Here are some other things that people also agree is true about Robert. That he's haunted and that he has caused car accidents, broken bones, job loss, divorce, and a cornucopia of other misfortunes. Obviously, not everybody agrees on that. But yeah, so that's the thing is he's at this museum and people do come visit him regularly because it's a museum. You know, you go to Key West, you're gonna go get drunk and stuff in the streets, and then you're gonna go visit Robert the Doll. That's what you do. And there's also that weird nudist bar there. Did not go in there when I was there because it felt really weird.
What was that one called?
What was it? I don't remember. I think it was called the Garden of Eden or something like that.
I was just checking to see if you knew.
It's upstairs in on Duval Street.
It's very specific.
I saw the people coming out of there. I'm like, I don't want to go in there.
Likely story.
But so one of the things that I thought was fascinating is they talk about some of the letters that he gets back because he's been accused of so many mishaps. So a lot of people who have come and visited him will then send letters apologizing for making fun of him or taking a picture of him because he doesn't like getting pictures of him, and all this other stuff. So it's hilarious. And also, I love this. This is a new thing that I didn't know before. There's the curator at the museum. She several years ago, she photoshopped Robert's knobby face onto the now famous picture of Kim Kardashian popping a bottle of champagne into a glass on her behind. It was in order to attract attention to a campaign that would score the museum a grant if they garnered enough votes. Through the combined forces of the Kardashians and Robert's celebrity and the doll's social media reach, he has almost 9,000 Facebook likes, and the museum won by a landslide.
Nice.
I love that story about her photoshopping his face and getting a grant from for the museum.
It's a weird picture to begin with.
It is.
What kind of grant was that?
I don't know.
Something about the booty organization. I can't remember.
And they did ask, and I wanted to read her quote because she's been working there for a long time as one of the curators. She goes, they asked, so is he haunted? Her name is, they have her in here as Convertito. So I didn't want to say it wrong the whole time, but I also don't want to not say her name. But I just said it correctly. She says, I don't know. I really don't. She says, I've never had a bad experience with him. I've never felt uncomfortable. It's always been a very basic relationship, and I have a job to do, and I go and I do it. And whether there's something to it or not, he just allows me to get on with my job. So basically, most likely the doll is not haunted. But people, same thing with the podcast we were talking about this week. People like to attribute bad things to things that they can see.
But
like
here's the
doll.
thing. I do see in this article, the most adventurous can even volunteer to be locked in with Robert after dark.
Mm-hmm.
Would you do it?
Alone?
Can
No.
Can I bring an iPad? Like,
No, you have to just look at Robert. You're not allowed to bring any distractions. He doesn't like that.
What's funny is like I don't think the doll's creepy. I don't think the doll looks creepy. It just looks like
You
an
don't think
old
that
doll.
looks creepy?
I don't think he looks that creepy. It's
No, but what if it
fine.
was dark and you saw that face looking at you?
Yeah, I get it. But the story about the guy that owned it, that's creepy.
Yeah, no, that is the worst. That's the worst
creepy.
part.
And if you haven't heard the story, go look it up. There's plenty of podcasts that have covered it. And
Yeah, there's a guy who liked Robert way too much. And his name was also Robert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now he lives inside Robert. And now inside of all of your brains. And he haunts you
and
unless you give him
also,
candies or joints.
If you learn about Robert the doll, which I just told you about, then you have 3 days to live. I'm kidding.
I think
like the ring.
his little stuffed animal is creepier than him.
I was going to say his little puppy looks scarier than he does, for sure.
Yeah.
The dog does look messed up. It's mostly the eyes. The eyes are messed up on the dog.
It's like the head doesn't fit the body. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It looks like somebody made that in their basement.
Yeah.
It looks like it's scary. The dog is scarier than Robert, in my opinion. Maybe that's what was going on the whole time.
Oh wait, Robert is a slave to the dog. The dog is the real
God.
evil.
Wow.
The dog's the real evil.
What's the dog's name? Does it have it on here? Jimmy?
Yeah, Jim.
I just made that.
Robert and Jimmy, the two most
Robert
haunted.
is haunted by Jim.
Jimmy, the dog doll's doll.
Seems weird, but I believe it. I don't know enough to dispute it.
And there are stories of Robert escaping the museum and going up to the Garden of Eden.
in his birthday suit.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right,
Oh,
friends. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Discovery Weekly. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.